Marcelo Alvarez was a man who had made a life for himself that many could only dream of. At 35, he owned a chain of luxurious hotels across the country, each more grand and lavish than the last. His name was well known in business circles, and he commanded respect with the quiet authority of someone who had earned his fortune through dedication and hard work. He lived alone in a sprawling penthouse atop one of his flagship hotels, a place that perfectly reflected his refined tastes and meticulous nature. The penthouse offered panoramic views of the city skyline, with expansive glass windows that allowed the soft, warm light of dawn to seep in each morning. Within those walls, his surroundings were carefully curated: tasteful furniture, classic art pieces, and a vast library of books that he cherished above all else. Despite his immense wealth and the luxurious life he led, Marcelo remained a reserved and private man. He was known for his sharp focus on his work, spending long hours in meetings, overseeing projects, and managing his business empire with an ironclad sense of responsibility. Outside of his professional life, however, few people knew much about him. He rarely entertained guests in his penthouse and had a small circle of close friends and confidants. His days were filled with the hum of business dealings, but his nights were his own, often spent in the solace of his home library. Marcelo was deeply passionate about books, novels, biographies, poetry, anything that could transport him to another world. In his quiet moments, he often reflected that reading had shaped his journey to success, allowing him to explore new ideas and perspectives that fueled his ambitions. Marcelo's relationship with his elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Ortega, was one of the few constants in his life. She had been with him since the early days, when he first moved into the penthouse, and she cared for the place with an almost maternal attention to detail. Mrs. Ortega understood Marcelo's routines and preferences better than anyone else, and she made it her mission to ensure that he had everything he needed to continue his demanding lifestyle. To her, Marcelo was more than just a wealthy employer. He was like the son she had never had, and she took pride in watching him rise to prominence while quietly worrying about the emptiness in his personal life. Marcelo wasn't always this wealthy, nor did he grow up with the luxuries he now enjoyed. His beginnings were modest, to say the least. Marcelo came from a large family with 3 younger siblings, and their life was simple but content. His father worked as a mechanic, and his mother took on various part-time jobs to help make ends meet. While they never had much money, they were rich in warmth and familial support. Marcelo grew up surrounded by the love of his siblings and the quiet sacrifices of his parents. This environment shaped his character, giving him a sense of groundedness and empathy that remained with him even as his life became more lavish. From an early age, Marcelo developed a fascination for stories and adventure. His father, although busy with work, always made time to bring home adventure novels for his children, and young Marcelo devoured them eagerly. Tales of explorers, faraway lands, and daring feats ignited a spark within him, instilling a yearning to experience the world beyond the confines of his small town. But it wasn't just the allure of adventure that captivated Marcelo. It was the way these stories painted places and ideas that seemed magical yet tangible, waiting for him to find. This love for adventure wasn't limited to books. Marcelo loved traveling, even if it was just short trips with his family to nearby towns or scenic spots. Those moments of discovering new places, meeting new people, and seeing how different life could be were like opening windows to different worlds. As he entered his teenage years, Marcelo's interests began to evolve. He started sketching his ideas, initially just rough images of the fictional places he read about. Gradually, those drawings took the form of architectural sketches, unique hotels and resorts that catered not just to the wealthy, but to anyone seeking an unforgettable experience. Teachers at school noticed Marcelo's talents and encouraged him to pursue his passion. His art teacher, in particular, saw potential in his sketches and urged him to take his designs seriously. Marcelo's drawings became more sophisticated, his imagination blending with practical considerations to create blueprints of structures that combined aesthetics with innovation. With his teacher's guidance and his family's unwavering support, Marcelo decided to pursue a degree in architecture and design in college. College opened a new chapter in Marcelo's life. He thrived academically, earning high grades and building connections with like-minded peers. However, it was during these formative years that he experienced his first brush with romance, a story that would shape his journey in unexpected ways. Marcelo met Anya during his second year of college. She was everything he was not: outgoing, popular, and wealthy. Anya was the kind of person who lit up a room simply by entering it, and Marcelo, despite his introverted nature, was drawn to her vivacity and confidence. At first, their relationship seemed like something out of one of the romance novels Marcelo had read as a boy. They spent time together, and Marcelo did everything he could to make her happy. He bought her gifts, took her to expensive restaurants, and surprised her with tickets to movies and the theater. He felt as if he were living in a dream, blissfully unaware of the harsh reality waiting to wake him. But life wasn't as simple as the stories Marcelo loved. Anya was used to luxury and status, and while Marcelo's gestures were sweet, she began to grow distant. Marcelo, too focused on his studies and the future he was trying to build, didn't notice the change until it was too late. One day, Anya abruptly ended their relationship. She had fallen for another student, someone wealthier, more popular, and better connected than Marcelo could ever hope to be at that point in his life. The heartbreak was crushing. For the first time, Marcelo felt the sting of betrayal, and the realization that his devotion wasn't enough left him reeling. It was this experience that set Marcelo on a new path. The pain of losing Anya and the humiliation he felt drove him to a single, unshakable resolve. He would never be in a position of weakness again. He promised himself that he would become so successful that no one could dismiss or overlook him. Marcelo buried his heartbreak deep within and channeled his emotions into his studies and ambitions. He pushed himself harder, staying up late to perfect his projects and expand his knowledge, often retreating to his books for solace and inspiration. Time passed, and Marcelo graduated with honors, receiving praise from professors and industry professionals alike. His talent and determination did not go unnoticed, and he was quickly offered a position at one of the leading construction firms in the city. It was here that Marcelo began to learn the intricacies of the business world. He saw how things worked behind the scenes, and while the corporate environment was challenging, it provided him with the practical experience he needed. Marcelo worked tirelessly, often going beyond his assigned duties to learn every aspect of the trade. Despite the pressures and the long hours, Marcelo didn't let the past distract him from his goals. He kept a small, old notebook with him at all times, the same one he had used in his teenage years to sketch out his imaginative hotel designs. Whenever he felt overwhelmed or uninspired, he would look through the pages, reminding himself of the dreams that first set him on this path. Over time, Marcelo began to think about leaving the firm and starting his own business, a decision that was not without risks, but was driven by a vision he couldn't let go of. Marcelo's journey from a young man with a broken heart to a rising architect was marked by determination and resilience. The betrayals and disappointments he faced didn't break him. Instead, they fueled a fire within him to reach greater heights. He wasn't just trying to prove himself to those who had doubted him. He was also striving to fulfill the dreams he had carried with him since childhood. Marcelo was no longer the naive young man who believed in fairy tale romances. He was now a man with a purpose and a relentless drive to achieve his ambitions, no matter what obstacles stood in his way. After his graduation, Marcelo Alvarez entered the professional world with the clear intention of making a name for himself. Fresh out of college, he joined a leading construction firm known for its prestigious projects and high-profile clientele. This firm, run by industry veterans, offered Marcelo the perfect environment to not only hone his technical skills, but also to learn the nuances of running a large-scale business. He was determined to absorb every bit of knowledge he could and was willing to put in the hours to do so. Marcelo spent long days at the firm, often arriving before his colleagues and leaving after the office lights had dimmed. While others saw work as a necessity, Marcelo viewed it as an opportunity, a stepping stone to greater things. In these early days, Marcelo learned that the world of construction and architecture was not merely about designing and building. It was about negotiation, persuasion, and finding innovative solutions to unexpected problems. He gained valuable insights into dealing with contractors, handling budgets, and managing tight deadlines. Marcelo paid attention to every detail, from the calculations that went into structural stability to the psychology of space that could transform a building into a memorable experience for its guests. His colleagues often found him staying behind to study blueprints or reading books about influential architects in his office's dim light. Despite being the youngest architect in the firm, Marcelo's dedication earned him a reputation. Senior executives began to notice his relentless work ethic and his keen understanding of design principles. They saw in Marcelo not just a capable architect, but a visionary with the ambition and intelligence to someday create something remarkable. Over time, Marcelo was entrusted with more responsibility, gradually moving from small projects to larger and more complex assignments. This recognition, however, came with its own set of challenges. The corporate culture in the firm was competitive, and jealousy among his peers wasn't uncommon. Marcelo faced resentment from older colleagues who felt threatened by his growing influence. He had to navigate office politics and handle delicate situations with tact and maturity beyond his years. But Marcelo never let these distractions deter him. As he spent more time in the firm, his ambitions began to crystallize. He often found himself returning to his old notebook, the one where he had sketched his dream hotels as a teenager. Despite his success, Marcelo's desire to create unique and unforgettable spaces still burned brightly. His dreams were too big to be confined within the boundaries of someone else's firm. He knew that if he wanted to bring his vision to life, he would have to take a risk and venture out on his own. The decision to leave the firm was not an easy one. Marcelo had built a stable career, earned a comfortable salary, and gained valuable experience. But he wasn't content with stability. He yearned for more. When the time felt right, Marcelo resigned from his position, armed with nothing but his savings, his passion, and a handful of sketch designs that represented his dreams. He faced skepticism from his colleagues, some of whom thought he was foolish to leave a secure job. Yet Marcelo remained undeterred. He knew that the only way to achieve something extraordinary was to take risks and forge his own path. Starting his own business was a daunting endeavor. Marcelo used his savings to establish a small architecture firm, renting a modest office space and hiring a few fresh graduates who shared his enthusiasm for innovative design. Those early days were a blur of long hours, intense pressure, and countless challenges. Marcelo had to wear many hats: architect, marketer, negotiator, and manager. Building a brand from scratch was not easy, especially with limited financial resources and little industry clout. Despite these hardships, Marcelo remained focused. He continued to draw inspiration from his old sketches, turning his designs into fully realized plans that incorporated both aesthetic beauty and practical functionality. His first few projects were small, low-budget hotels in less glamorous parts of the city. Yet Marcelo approached each project with the same passion and meticulousness he would give to his dream hotels. He saw every building as an opportunity to experiment and innovate, constantly refining his designs and learning from the results. Slowly but surely, his reputation began to grow. Clients appreciated Marcelo's attention to detail and his willingness to go the extra mile to ensure quality. Word of mouth spread, and larger projects began to come his way. With each new endeavor, Marcelo's confidence and experience grew, and his vision for a chain of unique hotels began to take shape. One of Marcelo's earliest backers was his close friend Matteo. The two had met in college and maintained a strong friendship over the years. Matteo was not only a supportive friend, but also an astute businessman with a knack for identifying profitable ventures. He had always believed in Marcelo's potential, and when Marcelo decided to start his own business, Matteo offered his help. He invested in Marcelo's firm and provided valuable business advice, helping him navigate the complexities of financing and growth. Together, they formed a partnership based on trust and mutual ambition. Matteo handled the financial side of the business, freeing up Marcelo to focus on what he did best, designing and creating. As the years went by, Marcelo's firm flourished, and his childhood dreams slowly turned into reality. He launched a chain of hotels, each one inspired by the sketches in his notebook. His designs were innovative, combining elements of classic architecture with modern conveniences and artistic flourishes that made each hotel stand out. Marcelo's unique vision attracted a loyal clientele, and his business began to expand rapidly. His dream of creating something remarkable was no longer a distant aspiration. It was becoming a reality with every new project completed. During this period of success, Marcelo's company was approached by a foreign businessman named Alberto Romano. Romano was known for his vast business empire and his willingness to invest in ventures with high growth potential. He had been impressed by Marcelo's innovative hotels and saw an opportunity to form a lucrative partnership. Romano was looking for a partner who could provide not just financial capital, but a creative vision that aligned with his long-term business goals. For Marcelo, this was the chance of a lifetime. A partnership with Romano would provide the financial backing and international exposure needed to take his hotels to the next level. However, Romano was known to be a traditionalist, placing great emphasis on the personal lives of his business associates. He had a strict policy of only forming partnerships with people who displayed strong family values and stability in their personal lives. As part of this policy, Romano required that his business associates attend formal events with their girlfriends or fiancées, believing that a man's choice of partner spoke volumes about his character. This posed a problem for Marcelo, who was single and had been focused solely on his career for the past few years. He knew that if he wanted to secure this deal, he would have to find a fiancée quickly. Marcelo turned to his assistant, Lucia, a highly competent and loyal employee who had been with him since the early days of his firm. He explained the situation to her and asked for her help in finding a suitable candidate. Lucia was well aware of Marcelo's discerning nature and knew that he wouldn't settle for just anyone. She began the search with a clear set of criteria. The candidate needed to be beautiful, blue-eyed, dark-haired, and most importantly, genuine and well-mannered. Marcelo was adamant that he didn't want someone who was only interested in his wealth. He needed someone who could convincingly play the role of his fiancée without arousing suspicion. Over the next few days, Lucia arranged interviews with several potential candidates. Marcelo met them one by one, hoping to find someone who met his expectations. However, each meeting ended in disappointment. Some of the women were beautiful, but lacked the sophistication and grace he was looking for. Others seemed more interested in his money and status than in helping him secure the business deal. Marcelo grew increasingly frustrated, feeling as though he was running out of time and options. The weight of the impending business opportunity, combined with the pressure to find the right person, left him feeling defeated. One evening, after yet another unsuccessful interview, Marcelo decided to clear his mind by visiting a local library. For him, libraries had always been a refuge, a place where he could escape from the demands of his life and lose himself in the world of books. He wandered the aisles, scanning the shelves for new titles that might offer a brief respite from his troubles. It was there, in the quiet solitude of the library, that Marcelo had an unexpected encounter that would change everything. As he reached for a book on a high shelf, Marcelo noticed a young woman a few feet away, absorbed in a novel. She had dark, wavy hair that cascaded over her shoulders and striking blue eyes that seemed to reflect the pages she was reading. There was a quiet elegance about her, a calm demeanor that contrasted sharply with the bustling life Marcelo led. Intrigued, he found himself stealing glances at her, trying to gather the courage to approach her without seeming intrusive. When the young woman looked up and noticed Marcelo watching her, he hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. But then, driven by a mix of desperation and curiosity, Marcelo approached her and introduced himself. The woman's name was Sophia, and she worked as a librarian. Their conversation was brief but meaningful, and Marcelo was struck by Sophia's intelligence and the genuine warmth in her eyes. She seemed different from anyone he had met recently, unpretentious and unassuming, yet confident in her own way. On an impulse, Marcelo decided to take a chance. He explained his predicament to Sophia, telling her about the upcoming business dinner and the importance of presenting a fiancé to his potential partner. Marcelo's request was bold and unusual, and Sophia's initial reaction was one of surprise and skepticism. She had no reason to trust him, and the idea of pretending to be someone's fiancé seemed absurd. Yet something in Marcelo's earnestness and vulnerability touched her, and she agreed to consider his offer. After a few moments of contemplation, Sophia agreed to help Marcelo. He thanked her sincerely and offered her money to buy a dress for the occasion. Sophia, hesitant but understanding the importance of appearances in such a setting, accepted the money with a mixture of reluctance and gratitude. Marcelo couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He knew that the upcoming business dinner would be crucial, and he hoped that Sophia's presence would help him make the right impression on Romano. Marcelo returned to his penthouse that night with a renewed sense of hope. As he prepared for the dinner, he couldn't shake the feeling that fate had led him to Sophia in that quiet library. Little did he know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would challenge his carefully constructed life and force him to confront the secrets and betrayals that lay hidden beneath the surface. Marcelo couldn't get Sophia out of his mind as he prepared for the upcoming business dinner. He spent the next few days planning meticulously, selecting the finest restaurant in the city, known for its sophisticated atmosphere and world-class cuisine. It was a place that radiated luxury and refinement, the kind of venue where high-stakes deals were brokered over champagne and whispered conversations. Marcelo wanted everything to be perfect. He hoped that with Sophia by his side, they could navigate the evening without a hitch. On the day of the dinner, Marcelo felt a rare sense of nervousness. He had faced countless challenges in his life, from building his business from scratch to overcoming betrayal, but this was different. For once, he was stepping into unknown territory, relying on someone he had only just met to help him secure one of the most significant deals of his career. When Sophia arrived at the penthouse to meet him before the event, Marcelo couldn't help but feel taken aback. She was transformed from the quiet librarian he had met into a vision of elegance. She wore a simple but tasteful black dress that accentuated her graceful figure, her dark hair pinned up with delicate curls framing her face. The blue of her eyes seemed even more striking in contrast to her attire, and Marcelo felt a fleeting moment of admiration. Sophia, on the other hand, was equally nervous. She had spent the previous night second-guessing her decision, wondering what she had gotten herself into. But something about Marcelo's sincerity during their first meeting had convinced her to take a leap of faith. She wasn't entirely sure why she had agreed. Maybe it was the challenge of stepping outside her comfort zone, or perhaps it was the allure of an adventure in a life that was otherwise routine. Whatever the reason, Sophia had decided to go through with it. She greeted Marcelo with a quiet smile, and despite her own nerves, she carried herself with poise and dignity. As they arrived at the restaurant, Marcelo offered Sophia his arm, and she accepted it with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. Walking into the grand dining hall, they were met with the murmur of polite conversations and the faint clinking of crystal glasses. The room was filled with influential businessmen and their elegantly dressed partners, all mingling and making small talk. Marcelo quickly spotted Alberto Romano, who was already seated at a table with several other guests. The older man exuded an air of authority and refinement, with an impeccably tailored suit and a watch that likely cost more than a modest house. Romano greeted Marcelo with a firm handshake and a scrutinizing gaze, sizing up both him and Sophia. The businessman was known for his attention to detail and his ability to read people with uncanny accuracy. He prided himself on being able to distinguish between sincerity and pretense, and Marcelo was well aware that Romano's approval would be hard to earn. As Marcelo introduced Sophia as his fiancée, she offered Romano a polite nod and a warm smile. To his credit, Marcelo managed to maintain his composure, masking his nerves behind a practiced mask of confidence. For a while, everything seemed to be going according to plan. Sophia played her part well, responding gracefully to the questions directed at her and engaging in small talk with the other guests. Marcelo couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Perhaps he had been worrying for nothing. However, just as the main course was being served, the evening took an unexpected turn. As they were discussing the hotel industry and future projects, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. Marcelo Alvarez? It was a voice that Marcelo hadn't heard in years, yet it was one he could never forget. He turned to see Anya standing there, her arm linked with Romano's. She was as stunning as ever, with an air of sophistication that spoke of wealth and privilege. It took Marcelo a moment to process what he was seeing. Anya, his first love, now engaged to the very businessman he was trying to impress. Anya's sudden appearance left Marcelo momentarily speechless. His mind raced, trying to reconcile the past with the present. Anya seemed just as surprised to see Marcelo, and a brief flicker of recognition passed between them, hinting at memories best left buried. Romano, oblivious to the history between them, introduced Anya as his fiancée. Sophia, watching from the sidelines, sensed the tension in Marcelo's expression and the unspoken words that hung heavy in the air. Dinner continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Anya's presence was like a ghost from Marcelo's past, stirring emotions he had long thought buried. Throughout the evening, he struggled to maintain his composure, trying to focus on the conversations at hand while ignoring the glances Anya occasionally cast in his direction. As they moved through the courses, it became increasingly difficult for Marcelo to stay composed. He felt the weight of his past decisions bearing down on him, as if all the effort he had put into creating a new life for himself was unraveling before his eyes. It was Sophia who broke the silence, her voice steady, yet laced with an underlying tension. As Romano made a casual remark about expanding his investments in the real estate market, Sophia suddenly spoke up, revealing a truth that caught Marcelo completely off guard. She shared that Marcelo's company had been responsible for evicting her family from their home, an event that had caused them immense hardship. There was a sharp intake of breath from the guests at the table, and all eyes turned to Marcelo, waiting for his response. Marcelo was blindsided by Sophia's revelation. He had been unaware of her family's eviction and had no idea that his company was involved. For a moment he felt as though the ground beneath him had disappeared. The expression on Romano's face hardened, and the atmosphere at the table became cold and tense. Marcelo quickly realized that Sophia's words had struck a nerve not only with Romano, but with other guests as well. The evening that he had worked so hard to perfect was falling apart, and he was powerless to stop it. Anya watched the unfolding drama with a mixture of curiosity and something else, perhaps a sense of vindication or lingering regret. Marcelo, still reeling from the revelation, managed to collect himself enough to address the situation. He expressed his regret and assured Sophia and the guests that he was unaware of the eviction and would look into the matter personally. But it was clear that the damage had been done. Romano, who valued integrity above all else, was visibly displeased. He excused himself from the table, leaving Marcelo and Sophia alone in a room full of judging eyes. After Romano's departure, Marcelo turned to Sophia, his voice strained with disbelief and anger. He asked her why she hadn't told him about the eviction earlier, and Sophia responded with a calm yet resolute tone. She explained that she hadn't known who Marcelo was until the day of their meeting at the library, and even then, she had chosen to keep the information to herself out of uncertainty and fear of retribution. But when the moment presented itself, she couldn't remain silent any longer. She felt compelled to speak her truth, regardless of the consequences. Marcelo felt a surge of conflicting emotions: anger at Matteo for handling the eviction without his knowledge, guilt over Sophia's pain, and a growing realization that his ambition had blinded him to the impact his business decisions had on others. He excused himself from the dinner and left the restaurant, desperate to find Matteo and demand an explanation. When Marcelo confronted Matteo the following day, his anger was palpable. He accused Matteo of betraying him, of acting behind his back and damaging their company's reputation. Matteo, caught off guard by Marcelo's fury, tried to explain his actions. He admitted that he had made the decision to proceed with the eviction without informing Marcelo, believing it to be in the company's best interest. Matteo apologized, insisting that he had only been trying to protect their business. But Marcelo wasn't willing to forgive so easily. He felt deeply betrayed by the friend he had trusted for so many years. In the days that followed, Marcelo struggled to process everything that had happened. He sent Sophia a heartfelt message apologizing for the eviction and expressing his regret for the pain it had caused her family. But Sophia, still reeling from the events of the dinner, remained distant. She was wary of Marcelo's intentions and unsure whether she could trust him after everything that had transpired. Despite the setback with Romano, Marcelo couldn't bring himself to let things end this way. He felt a growing sense of guilt and responsibility, not only for what had happened to Sophia's family, but also for the decisions he had made that had led him down this path. He resolved to make amends, not just with Sophia, but with himself. Marcelo knew that he needed to take responsibility for his actions and confront the mistakes of his past if he ever hoped to move forward. One morning, Marcelo found himself standing outside the library, waiting for Sophia to arrive. He had spent the previous night drafting and discarding multiple letters, trying to find the right words to express his remorse. But in the end, he decided that a face-to-face apology was the only way to convey his sincerity. When Sophia arrived and saw Marcelo waiting for her, she hesitated, unsure of what to expect. But Marcelo approached her with a humility and vulnerability that was unlike the confident businessman she had met at the dinner. Marcelo apologized to Sophia, explaining that he had been unaware of her family's eviction and that he had taken steps to rectify the situation. He expressed his regret for not being more vigilant and for allowing his ambition to cloud his judgment. Sophia listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When Marcelo finished, there was a long moment of silence between them. Sophia, still hurt and unsure, didn't immediately respond to his apology. Marcelo waited, knowing that he couldn't force her forgiveness, but hoping that his words had reached her. After what felt like an eternity, Sophia spoke. She acknowledged Marcelo's apology and admitted that she appreciated his efforts to make things right. But she also made it clear that trust was not something that could be restored overnight. Marcelo understood and respected her honesty, realizing that this was only the first step in rebuilding the fragile connection between them. Before leaving, Marcelo asked Sophia if she would be willing to have dinner with him, not as part of a business arrangement, but as an opportunity to start fresh. Sophia hesitated, weighing her options. Despite her reservations, she couldn't deny the sincerity in Marcelo's eyes and the effort he had made to seek her out and apologize in person. After a moment's contemplation, she agreed to dinner, though with the caveat that it was not a promise of reconciliation, but a chance to have an honest conversation. As Marcelo watched Sophia walk away, he felt a sense of cautious hope. He knew that the road to redemption would be long and uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt as though he had taken the first step in the right direction. When Marcelo invited Sophia to dinner, he did so without the grandiosity and pretense that typically surrounded his business dealings. This time, it wasn't about securing a deal or impressing anyone. It was simply about trying to make a genuine connection. He chose a quiet, intimate restaurant tucked away on a side street, far from the luxurious and often intimidating venues he frequented. This place was different. It was warm, unassuming, and comfortable, with cozy booths and soft candlelight creating a soothing ambiance. Marcelo hoped the choice would signal to Sophia that this evening wasn't about business or appearances, but about honesty and sincerity. Sophia arrived with her usual cautious demeanor, not entirely sure what to expect. She had spent the days leading up to this dinner reflecting on Marcelo's apology and the complexity of the situation between them. Her emotions were conflicted. On one hand, she appreciated Marcelo's effort to make amends, but on the other, she struggled to reconcile his past actions with the man he seemed to be now. Trust, once broken, was not easily restored, and Sophia knew that one dinner wouldn't magically fix everything. Marcelo greeted her with a gentle smile, and they took their seats at a table by the window, where the city lights provided a soft, glimmering backdrop. For a while, the conversation remained surface level, consisting mostly of polite small talk. They discussed the weather, recent books they had read, and mundane things that didn't require much vulnerability. Marcelo could sense Sophia's hesitancy, and he knew he couldn't rush things. He had to let her come to him on her terms. As the evening progressed, the conversation slowly deepened. Marcelo began to open up about his past, not just the successes that had made him wealthy, but also the failures and regrets that had shaped him. He spoke candidly about his heartbreak with Anya and the driving force it had become in his life, pushing him to succeed at all costs. He admitted that, in his pursuit of success, he had lost sight of the impact his actions had on others. Marcelo's vulnerability took Sophia by surprise. This was a side of him she hadn't seen before, a man willing to acknowledge his flaws and take responsibility for his mistakes. Encouraged by Marcelo's openness, Sophia gradually began to share more of her own story. She spoke of her family and the hardships they had faced after being evicted, as well as the struggle to rebuild their lives. Sophia's family wasn't wealthy or powerful, but they were close-knit and supportive of one another. Losing their home had been a devastating blow, and Sophia had felt a profound sense of guilt and helplessness for not being able to protect them from the harshness of the world. Marcelo listened attentively, genuinely moved by Sophia's resilience and the love she had for her family. By the end of the evening, both Marcelo and Sophia felt a shift in the dynamic between them. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no sweeping declarations of forgiveness or redemption. Instead, there was a quiet understanding, a sense that they had taken a small but meaningful step towards bridging the distance between them. When they parted ways, Sophia left with a lingering uncertainty, but also with a glimmer of hope that perhaps Marcelo wasn't the man she had initially thought him to be. Over the following weeks, Marcelo and Sophia continued to see each other, cautiously navigating their way through a complicated web of emotions. They went on more dates, each one a chance to explore the growing connection between them. Sometimes they visited quaint cafes or walked through the city's parks, talking about everything from their childhood memories to their favorite books. Marcelo found that he enjoyed these moments of simplicity and sincerity in Sophia's company. There was no need for grand gestures or elaborate plans, just honest conversations and a growing sense of comfort in each other's presence. It wasn't long before they began to realize that their bond was deepening into something more. Marcelo found himself looking forward to their time together, eager to hear Sophia's thoughts and share his own. Sophia, too, began to let down her guard, slowly allowing herself to trust Marcelo and see beyond the facade of wealth and power that surrounded him. They discovered shared interests and passions, particularly their mutual love for books and literature. On rainy afternoons, they would sit together in cozy corners of bookstores, losing themselves in the world of fiction, while exchanging quiet smiles and knowing glances. As their feelings for each other grew stronger, Marcelo reached a point where he couldn't imagine his life without Sophia in it. She had become not only a source of companionship and understanding, but also a guiding light that helped him find his way back to the person he wanted to be. Marcelo knew that he had to take the next step, and with nervous excitement, he planned a special evening to propose to Sophia. He chose the rooftop garden of his penthouse for the occasion, transforming it into a magical setting with twinkling fairy lights and candles that bathed the space in a warm golden glow. The evening was clear, and the stars shone brightly above them as Marcelo led Sophia to the rooftop. He took a deep breath and, for a moment, felt the weight of everything that had led them to this point. The mistakes, the betrayals, the chance encounters, and the slow, steady journey towards trust and love. Marcelo expressed his feelings with heartfelt sincerity, telling Sophia how much she meant to him and how she had changed his life in ways he could never have anticipated. Sophia, touched by Marcelo's words and the journey they had shared, accepted his proposal with a quiet but joyful yes. They embraced, the city skyline twinkling in the distance as a silent witness to their newfound happiness. After their engagement, Marcelo and Sophia began planning their wedding and honeymoon. They wanted their honeymoon to be a celebration of their shared love for literature and history, so they decided to embark on a journey to visit literary landmarks and the homes of famous writers. It was a dream come true for both of them, a chance to explore the places that had inspired some of their favorite works and to create new memories together. Their honeymoon was a blend of adventure and tranquility. They visited the rolling countryside of England, where they explored the homes of authors like Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters. They strolled through gardens that had inspired poets and sat in libraries filled with centuries-old books. They even took a detour to Paris, where they wandered the streets that had been immortalized in classic novels and dined at quaint cafes that had once hosted literary legends. The trip brought them closer, deepening their bond and strengthening their love for each other. Returning from their honeymoon, Sophia moved into Marcelo's penthouse, and they began their life together as a married couple. The transition was smooth, marked by a sense of joy and contentment that came from knowing they had chosen each other despite all the challenges they had faced. Their evenings together were often quiet and peaceful, spent in the library of the penthouse where they would read side by side, exchanging passages and discussing their thoughts. It was a simple ritual, but one that brought them immense happiness. Marcelo's life, which had once been defined by ambition and solitude, was now filled with warmth and companionship. He no longer felt the need to chase after success for the sake of proving himself. Instead, he focused on creating a life that was meaningful and fulfilling. Sophia, too, found a new sense of purpose in her life, embracing her role not just as Marcelo's wife, but as his partner and confidant. As time passed, their relationship continued to flourish, built on a foundation of trust, honesty, and mutual respect. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but they approached them with a sense of unity and understanding that came from having overcome so much together. Marcelo and Sophia's love story wasn't perfect, but it was real and deeply felt, a testament to the power of second chances and the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. In the years that followed, Marcelo continued to expand his hotel business, but this time with a renewed sense of purpose. He became more involved in charitable initiatives, using his wealth and influence to support causes that aligned with his values. Sophia, too, pursued her passions, volunteering at local libraries and working to promote literacy programs for underprivileged children. Together, they built a life that was not only successful but also meaningful and impactful. In the end, Marcelo and Sophia found happiness not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through the quiet moments of everyday life, the shared dinners, the evening walks, and the quiet reading sessions that had come to define their relationship. Their love story was a reminder that true happiness comes not from perfection, but from the willingness to embrace one's flaws, confront the past, and work towards a better future. The narrator reflects on the journey that brought Marcelo and Sophia together, a journey filled with mistakes, betrayals, and unexpected encounters. It wasn't an easy path, but it was one that led them to a place of genuine love and happiness. Marcelo, once a reserved and driven businessman, had found in Sophia the missing piece of his life, while Sophia had discovered in Marcelo a partner who valued her for who she was, not for what she could offer. The story concludes with a message to the audience, encouraging them to support and comment if they enjoyed the tale. The narrator emphasizes the importance of second chances and the power of love to heal old wounds and bring people together. Life, after all, isn't about avoiding mistakes, but about learning from them and finding the courage to move forward. As Marcelo and Sophia's story demonstrates, even the most unexpected encounters can lead to something beautiful if one is willing to take the risk and open their heart to new possibilities.